Alright, what's going on, you guys? Snagging with Sean back here, and today we're going to be going over what I will be using for the bass opener. I'm located in southeast Ontario, and bass opens tomorrow on my zone, so we're going to be going out for some bass. I'm going to show you guys the rigs I'm going to be using, what I'll switch up if the bass aren't reacting nicely, and yeah, hope you enjoy. Alright, what's going on, guys? So tomorrow, here are some of the lures we'll be rigging up, some rigs that are my go-tos. I think we might start out with a chatterbait after our topwater bite. The trailer I'm using right now is the Googan Squad Saucy Swimmer, 3.8 inch. Watermelon speckled colors with a white bottom to get some flash off the bottom, as well as the chatterbait throwing it off. So I like this trailer for my chatterbait because it adds about 2 inches of length to it, and it matches the colors super well. I try to do that when I use my trailers, is match the colors. I find if you're throwing something, if I'm throwing my white chatterbait here, I'm not going to throw on a bright green trailer. I'm going to try to keep the colors similar. I don't have many trailers that I'll use for this white chatterbait. I probably won't use it tomorrow. White's later in the summer color for me, and I don't get much action on it. But in the sense, then we got this blue chatterbait here, black and blue. So we might throw a darker green trailer on it. I don't have any blue trailers. I try to stick away from colored plastics. I like sticking with the basics and the general colors, because I think that's the way to go. Something simple, something green with watermelon specks, green with a bit of flash. Green is the color here in Ontario that the bass like to eat, and that's what I'll be sticking with. Alright guys, so another lure I'll be using are these Raging Toads. Tomorrow I'll be using these Googan Toads. I usually just get the Raging Toads, but I couldn't find any in the fishing store, and the other Googan quality stuff I used was very nice, so probably stick with it. And how you set these guys up are, so you're gonna want to go just to about here on the hook, right before the bend. You're gonna poke through, you're gonna bring the toad up, and get to about here. You're gonna spin them around, you're gonna see where your hook sits. So where your hook sits, you're gonna put your thumb, you're gonna go through the bottom in the middle, try to flip it around so you guys can see where your thumb is. That's where I'm gonna poke through. I'm gonna bring it on top here. So I don't know if you guys can see. Just bring it through the top. And just a simple setup like this with a Raging Toad, I find it works really well because you can throw it out in the open water as well. Throws off a bit more action than a Spro. I like them. I mean, there's no real way to save them. You lose a lot, but they're definitely one of my go-to lures. I love using them. Caught plenty of largies on them, and yeah, it's definitely a lure I'll be using tomorrow, and I think you guys should try out. So another go-to setup I'll be using is just like the plain old wacky worm setup. I'm going to start with something small, these 4-inch Yamamotos, green with the white underbody. Don't want to go too big because it's still early in the season. The water is a bit cold, and the whole season's sort of behind schedule. The ice melted like 2 weeks late. Just sort of a slow summer, so I don't know if the bass bite will be too good. So we'll start off with something small, because sometimes what you have to do is start small. So I hook these up. I also have my O-ring kit here, so some of you guys, if you don't like losing your worms, I really recommend using an O-ring setup. So you just pull your O-ring up on here, get it down your O-ring, put your wacky on, put your O-ring over your wacky, just like that, about in the middle, and then you put your hook through the O-ring actually. So what this does is, when the fish bite your wacky, and they're pulling on the ends, all those little rock bass and stuff, usually tends to rip the hook out of the worm. So when you use an O-ring, it sort of defeats that, and you'll be losing a lot less worms. I don't use it too much, as I like to stay pretty stock setup. I don't like changing things around. I have my own ways, and that's how I do things. I've always been like that fishing. I tie the same knot I've tied since I was 5, and that's how I am. So this is another setup that I'll be using tomorrow. Just a 4-inch Yamamoto on a wacky. Plenty of little action on it there, just to get the bite going, because sometimes what you have to do is go smaller. Going smaller never hurts. A lot of these big baits you'll see, the fish aren't actually eating. You're buzzing that bait right by its head, and he's thinking, I'm not gonna eat that one. I'll eat the next thing that comes around a bit smaller. Bigger baits can be intimidating to fish, and if the bite's slow and the water's a bit colder, they're gonna stick away from bigger targets. This is a 5-inch Liquid Mayhem watermelon speckled worm. And another setup I'll be using is the Nico setup. So basically what you do is you take your Nico weight, get the bottom of the plastic, and you push it through the bottom of your worm. Yes, I know I'm struggling a little bit. I could have cut the tip of the worm off, but since it's not a big worm, I'm not gonna do that. Try to keep it inside the worm. So there we go. We got our Nico weight in. Then the next step to this is taking your O-ring kit, getting another O-ring down, put the side of the worm that does not have the Nico weight into the O-ring kit, plop the O-ring kit off about 1/4 to 1/3 of the way in, so I'm about 1/4 of the way in here, and then you're going to take your wacky styled hook. So I'm going to grab another wacky styled hook here, size 2, and basically hook it like this. So you want to get, sorry, my hands are really slippery. I'm going to get through the O-ring, just like that. And you want to have your hook sitting like that. So basically the action on this lure is boom, boom, boom. The Nico weight sinks it to the bottom quicker than a basic wacky setup. So you can bounce off the bottom. You could even punch a little bit with it, but you got to be careful because it's not weedless. So it's more of a swimming action bait than a wacky where you sort of sit it and put it in spots. And this is another great setup for bass in Ontario. Definitely one of my go-tos, and you'll see me using it a lot this year. Alright guys, so once again we have some Liquid Mayhem baits here, and these are actually pre-cut Ned worms. So a lot of the time with Ned rigging, I like to just take my wacky. So I'll get a pack of, these are 4-inch Yamamotos, but I'll get 5-inch worms, and I'll just sort of chop them into portions, usually just in half, and I'll use that for my Ned rig because I find it more cost efficient. But these are pre-rigged Ned worms, bait to use up in Canada here. And so you'll slide your net on, beat it through, feed it all the way up. This is a weedless Ned jig, well, pretty much weedless, which I like using because even sometimes when you knock off some rocks, this little wire here sort of deters your hook from getting caught, or beating through some weeds that are off the top of the surface from motors. Guys, so now that you've made it into the latter half of the video, I'm going to show you some of the lures I'll be using. So this right here is the new Googan Popper. This is the first Googan Popper I've owned. I've owned plenty of poppers. I went through hundreds of them growing up. My favorite lure, I love topwaters. I live for a topwater explosion from a big largemouth or a smallmouth coming out of the water and hitting it. This is just a sleek black look with some green fur and a green mouth. A lot of topwater bites are reactional from fish and they don't actually see it. But even then, this black color will still be seen as the water's pretty clear where I'm fishing, and it throws off the plop, of course. Ploop, ploop, ploop. So you see me using this guy a lot tomorrow as I'll be hunting that topwater bite that I've been missing. Alright guys, so here's some other lures that I'll be using tomorrow. Definitely going to be throwing my Rapala DT1. I've put some new titanium treble hooks on here, as this lure has went to war for me many times. As you can see, all the battle scars on it. You can unfortunately not get these in Canada anymore, so if you want them, you gotta order from Tackle Warehouse. And I've just not had an order big enough where I want to go buy some of these. Definitely one of my favorite go-to lures. Throws an amazing wake off the top, and you gotta use it to see it, or watch my video. This 6th Sense Sunfish wake lure, very similar to the DT1. I actually purchased this not long ago. I'll be using this because I love the colors, and it's very similar to my DT1, but it's a 2-piece swivel lure, so it throws off a little bit more action. And bass love feeding on sunfish this time of year because it's just after spawn. They're protecting their beds and they're hungry, and when they see that wake with the sunfish colors, they will not be able to resist it. So some other lures I'll be using is this Spook here, just a basic minnow colored silver undershine with a black top tone. Spook, original Spook. I've had this for years and years, and it's always done me good. Just a basic walk, plop, plop, plop. Imitates an injured fish. Great lure to use when fishing bass. You will catch your fair share of pike on it too, or muskie, depending the body of water you're fishing. Alright you guys, I hope you enjoyed that video of my basic bass setups, what I'll be using tomorrow, what I've used for years, and what is consistent for me. I'll be posting my bass opener video, hopefully day of. We'll see. It might be a hard day and we might have to jump bodies of water there like I mentioned in the start. And what I'm thinking about switching up to if the bite's picky, or if there's a good bite. There's lots of variation in it. A lot of good setups for beginners. And I hope you guys enjoy. Bass openers tomorrow. Hopefully I'll be fishing it. We're supposed to have a windy day, 60km/h gusts, and I'm gonna do everything I can to get out there and produce a video for you guys, because I've been itching for this bass season fish since I've started my YouTube channel. And it's basically a yearly thing where I love bass season, bass opener. It's my go-to fish. I love fishing bass. Nothing beats it here in Canada. I mean, I want to go down to the States eventually, hopefully Lake Fork, and catch some of those 10-pound monsters, double-digit bass. But for now, we'll be fishing the Canadian largies and smallies, and we're gonna have a good day tomorrow. I hope you guys enjoyed that video, my go-to setups, and don't be afraid to click that next video because it's gonna be a banger. Don't be afraid to hit like and subscribe. Don't be afraid to join that snagging squad and check out my Instagram. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Tune in tomorrow for a banger. Boom!